screencast for America, Opportunity and Inequality, 1920 to 1972. Today we're going to be looking at LO17 from your knowledge organiser. Why was there a rising fear of immigrants in the 1920s? This heavily links with LO16, so I'd advise you watching the screencast on that as well, which is why Americans' attitudes began to change towards immigrants. But now we're looking at a rising fear, an increase in worry about immigrants. So, what do we already know about immigrants then? We know most of them came from Eastern Europe. There's beginning to be a closed door policy. Lots of Americans felt that they were taking their jobs, that they were taking over areas such as Little Italy in New York, and that they came with different ways and ideas about life, such as not being Protestant, so being Catholic or being Jewish. But the main reason for a rising fear is because of two ideas. And the ideas are communism and anarchism. And it's really kind of important to understand what these ideas are, and we're going to look at that moving forwards in a moment. But we can just see some propaganda from the time. Is this tomorrow America under communism and America burning and Americans being killed? Anarchists bombing things, although to be fair, they did actually blow up places in America. This fear, it just built the fear around them. So we'll start off with communism then. So America ultimately was a capitalist society, and by capitalism we mean the following. We mean that there is a focus where every single person in America can keep their wealth and try and get as rich as they possibly want to get the American dream, okay, which is to make as much money as you can. So it's about working and being able to keep your wealth. So that's the link there. Whereas Eastern European countries, people were coming from communism, and communism is the complete opposite of capitalism. It's where you take everyone's wealth and you distribute it equally. So it's an un-American idea because Americans believe in keeping your wealth, communists believe in sharing wealth. And what we have here, we can see the world map, and we have the fact that we've got communists going all the way over to a capitalist country. Okay, so we're going this way. And it's going to create this idea that a foreign idea is coming into the country, one that is anti-American. So kind of what was going on in the time that made people afraid of communism in America? Well, first of all, we have an example on the screen, and we can see it here, the trail of the terrorist bombs. And this middle image here is an image of someone called Michael Palmer's house. Now, Michael Palmer was in charge of the American police. And basically someone tried to blow themselves up outside his house, and a newspaper found near the body was a communist newspaper, supposedly. So Palmer said this was proof of communist plots against America. So what he did was that he said, this is a revolution of radicals. These are people trying to take over America. These communists, they belong in prison. So he had 6,000 communists hunted down as part of something called the Palmer Raids. All 6,000, there was no proof that they were trying to take over America. However, this fear of communism meant that Americans could do that. And ultimately, it led to a fear of Eastern European immigrants because they were communist. And it led to something called the Red Scare. Now, the Red Scare is a fear of anti-American ideas. One of them being, as you can see on the screen, communism. So the Red Scare is the fear of communism. Now, the other ideology that we've got to look at is anarchism. Now, anarchism is again an anti-American idea, because what we can see on the screen here is the USA flag, and the United States of America has a government. They have a president, and they believe in that. Whereas Eastern European immigrants, some of them were anarchists, and they believed in having no government, that we shouldn't have a government. So again, what we've got here is the ideas of anarchism and communism going over to America, and these ideas are anti-America. And it leads to the Red Scare. We can see here the communist symbol taking over the American flag. We can see anarchy, like a landslide, crushing America, Uncle Sam, saying that these ideas are crushing America. And this is the scare of the Reds, the scare of the communists, the scare of the anarchists. And these immigrants are coming over and they're bringing these ideas, and we should be scared of these ideas because they are anti-American. And something that kind of really puts this is an example of kind of where the Red Scare negatively impacted Americans, because we've got the fact that, you know, communists were being, Eastern European communists were being arrested incorrectly, because they're allowed to be communists, they're just not allowed to try and take over the government. But people lied and said they were trying to take over the government. So that was one negative thing. Anarchists then, so they were being blamed for crimes they didn't commit just because they were anarchists. And the example you need to know and for that is Sacco and Vanzetti. So they were charged with murder. They didn't do the murder, and the judge said, well, they didn't do the murder, but because they're anarchists, they might as well have done. So they were put to death for the crime of this murder, again showing how immigrants were treated poorly in America. So I think to sum up those ideas, we know that there was a fear of communism, there was a fear of anarchism. Both of those link to something called the Red Scare. So the Red Scare is the fear of anarchism and the fear of communism. However, that fear of communism and anarchism was taken too far because innocent immigrants were hurt. 6,000 incorrectly arrested during the Parma raids, Sacco and Vanzetti incorrectly put to death just because they are immigrants.